Good morning and welcome to Car Dealer Live at the slightly later than advertised time of 9 minutes past 9. Unfortunately, we've been waiting for the SMMT data to actually publish, but we've got it, and we're going to be talking about the October new car registrations. And joining me as ever is Mike Jones, Chairman of ASE Global. Good morning, Mike.
Morning, Joe.
Morning. Lovely to have you on as ever. I think we should probably just crack on and talk about the October new car registrations. So I'll give the headlines for the viewers. So 140,945 cars were registered in the month, which was down 1.6%. Also, diesel sales down nearly 39% at just under 21,000. Petrol were down 21% at just under 70,000. Battery electric cars, enormous growth during the month, up 195%. And surprisingly, the bestseller in October was not the Ford Fiesta, it wasn't the Vauxhall Corsa, it was the Mercedes-Benz A-Class. Right, Mike, I'm a little bit surprised by the 1.6% actually. I mean, September down 4.4. As we know, that was influenced by some big factors, really. What's your take on October's data?
Yeah, looking into the data, as always, is quite interesting, and it's a continuation of the trend that we've seen over the course of the previous months, where certainly we saw in September, where the overall registration number is marginally down, but it's really down as a result of a reduction in the amount of supply push, a reduction in the amount of pre-registration, tactical registrations, etc. that we've seen. I mean, registrations en masse were tracking sort of double digits ahead as we went all the way through the month. And it's only actually a drop right at the month end in those month end registrations that we actually see the overall fall. I think as well, it's interesting to see the change in tone from Mike Hawes in his sort of statement as well. Last month we were commenting that we were the industry was very much looking for a support package. September was down on a low number, and he wanted to make sure that people knew that. This month is very much focusing on, please let us open the showrooms and please get Brexit sorted. So we're starting to look forward now towards the time horizon of next year, and that being really important for businesses. But also, please let us open. And the other thing that he's keen to stress in there as well, and obviously we tend to focus a lot on England and the English rules and the lockdown, but these numbers did include the sort of fire break in Wales, and that did depress demand in Wales. So I think the results are strong. We're certainly seeing positive profitability results through October, with the initial ones that are in, backing up what we've seen in September, which is sort of record profitability. But we did start to see the first effects of the sort of fire break lockdowns spreading around the UK.
Yeah. I mean, even in the SMMT's headline, I mean, they sort of put the decline down to the Welsh fire break. I mean, they actually mention the fire break, which is quite interesting. I mean, sort of looking ahead to December, presuming showrooms can reopen on December the 2nd, we're not sort of in lockdown for the rest of December. I mean, November is pretty much a write-off, really, isn't it? I mean, what do you think we can expect from December? Do you think sort of the OEMs are going to be pushing out sort of great new car offers to try and stimulate a bit of demand in December, which is traditionally a very, very quiet month, or do you think everyone's just written off 2020?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't sort of adhere to a lot of those comments in the nicest possible way. November, I don't think is a write-off. I think some businesses will shut completely, but I think the trade learnt an awful lot from the last lockdown. I'm expecting service departments to stay open. I'm expecting sales departments to stay open, whether physically in the showroom or virtually from home, not dealing with customers in the showroom, but still dealing with them virtually over the phone, over email, internet videos, all that sort of good stuff. So I'm expecting actually the level of business to keep going at a higher level than we saw during the last lockdown. December, who knows, as you quite rightly said, it depends whether we're allowed to open as to whether we can get sort of back to normal. I mean, November profitability is always tough anyway. It's never a great month from a profitability point of view. It's a mid-quarter month. There's normally losses. So I would expect that to continue. But I think the trade's going to work really, really hard to try and keep the level of business going. And I think actually, compared to the first lockdown, we're going to be helped. I mean, I did the school run this morning. Before we came on, there's still plenty of traffic out there. With schools staying open and lots of businesses staying open, there is going to be a level of traffic. There is going to be customers are going to want to still get their car serviced. They're going to think about changing their car. So I think we're going to see increased activity, albeit not as much as we would have done if we'd have stayed open. But the disappointing thing is that retailers were actually on for a decent 2020. As we spoke last time, if I look at the results at the end of September, the overall profitability is slightly behind last year, but there are some franchises that are actually ahead year on year from a profitability point of view, which is quite amazing given the lockdown we've had, and seeing this, it shows you the strength of the bounce and also the strength of the potential profitability when we haven't got quite the same level of supply push into the industry.
Yeah. I mean, that was an interesting point that I took away from our last discussion this time last month was, you had the SMMT having quite a negative tone, and yet the dealers that you and I have been speaking to were all reporting a very, very strong September. And I think you're right. I think people are going to be, dealers are going to be trying to carry that through this lockdown in England. It's not the same as it was the first time round. Yes, there are perhaps stronger restrictions in terms of the actual mechanics of customers being able to walk onto the forecourts and into showrooms. Of course, they can't do that. But most dealers have taken the last few months, the summer months, to actually invest a lot in digital, improve their communication channels, and they're really well set up to get through this period of time. Is that something that dealers are telling you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in my mind, we've sort of almost moved forward 5 years in a digital transformation point of view in a 3 to 6 month period. Customers are an awful lot happier and more comfortable interacting like we're doing now, seeing cars, etc., and reviewing them. And people are getting used to much more click and collect, much more home delivery of things. And I can see that continuing. I mean, some retailers have made some absolutely brilliant strides as we've gone through the lockdown period and then the last few months post-lockdown. And they're an awful lot more capable now to manage a proper omni-channel transaction, so customers can either do things physically or virtually and go all the way through. And I think the other thing, from a customer perception point of view, I can't see any sign that customers are going to stop seeing adverts for cars, and particularly used cars, on the television. The amount of advertising dollars, pounds that are being spent at this particular moment in time in advertising some of the new used car entrants in addition to all of the existing franchise dealers we've got, and also the brands, means that there's quite a lot of time on the television where we're actually seeing car-related ads. That can only help general customer interest and overall demand levels.
Yeah, and it's a bit of a cliche to say it, but we know that when people are bored, especially during a lockdown, they're going to be searching for a new car, whether that's actually in the market to buy or just dreaming. So, the level of interest in new car purchases is either going to remain stable or it's going to increase, isn't it? So it's going to be interesting to see how that pans out. Let me just go back to the data momentarily. I mean, September, one big thing that came out of the data in September was the fact it wasn't very much of a balanced picture in terms of the brands selling cars. You had like VW Group, posting massive percentage rises, but that was influenced by September 2019, when of course we had CO2 emissions regulations and all sorts of associated factors around that. Looking at the data in October, Do you think it's a bit more of a balanced picture?
Yeah, I mean, there is still some ups and, some sort of historical ups and downs. We've got a big growth in Audi, which is up just over 50% year on year, albeit that, I mean, actually for the previous 2 years, Audi volumes had been depressed as a result of the sort of real-world driving and the emissions challenges that they had from a car compliance point of view in order to get the vehicles out. I mean, if you look at the league table from a brand point of view, you've got Ford number 1, Vauxhall number 2, Audi 3, Mercedes 4, BMW 5, Vauxhall 6, Toyota 7. So that's a little bit more of a standard league table that we would expect. Now, some of the brands are double-digit down, but I think a lot of that is being driven around supply at this particular moment in time, what vehicles people have got and when. Now, clearly, as we go forwards, Brexit's going to make a huge impact on that. I would imagine from a brand point of view, there is the accelerator being pressed down on a variety of boats at this particular moment in time, given the fact that if they get the cars docked before midnight on the 31st, then they don't get any potential tariffs. If they come in at past midnight on the 1st of January, there could be a 10% tariff. So I would imagine that we're going to see the planning for getting vehicles into the country to ease some of those supply issues and avoid the potential 10% increase in price for what is exactly the same car. It just arrived in the country 5 minutes later.
Yeah. And I mean, unsurprisingly, in the registrations data, it's, there have been sort of small rises, sort of middling falls for most of the manufacturers, but MG continue to lead the way with a 126% increase. But I think it's time for Chevrolet to come out of the SMT data now, isn't it? I think with 000, but that's probably one for the SMT to sort out. That was going to be my next point, really. Do you think this lockdown in England and the restrictions across Europe as well, do you think that's going to have an effect on car factories? Because we spoke about it in the first lockdown, really, didn't we? Or do you think this lockdown period is so short and restrictions are not so stringent, the factories aren't going to be affected?
We've not seen yet the big raft of announcements in the press with regards to plant closures. I think that the brands are much happier with their supply of vehicles compared to the demand at this particular moment in time. So they're not using lockdown as an excuse to pause the factory production. In fact, they need to keep it going. You can't build cars from home, so they can absolutely argue that they need to remain open, and I would expect them to continue to do so, because we need these cars being built. We've seen from the stats today that alternative fueled vehicles continue to grow, not quite exponentially, but certainly very rapidly. I know Volkswagen were in the press overnight talking about wanting to make sure that they keep that supply of vehicles coming in spite of lockdowns that they've got predominantly in Germany impacting them. But no, I would expect that the factories will stay open. I would expect that the industry will continue to push for safe showroom opening, safe customer handling, which frankly we've done brilliantly. I mean, there's so many great examples of businesses that have done a great job looking after their staff and also their customers during this period. And I would expect that we will continue to push for showroom reopening. Whether we actually get there or not is a different matter, because they seem to be going for really quite simple rules that, in theory, us simple people can follow.
Yeah, and just lastly, I'm just looking at the data again. In the month of October, BEVs, so that is battery electric vehicles, not hybrids, it's purely electric cars, just over 9,000 registrations in October 2020. Diesel was 21,000. So give or take, BEVs are sort of half the way to diesel sales. I mean, it's different in year to date, 230,000 for diesel compared to 76,000 for BEVs. But I'm not going to say the tide is turning, but it is going that way a little bit, really, isn't it? It seems to be a massive marked increase in battery electric vehicles, and consumers seem to be more aware of them now as the months go on.
Absolutely, and we're seeing much more supply coming into the market now of pure BEVs as different brands go through their product launches, and we're going to see that all the way through 2021 as well. I'm sure you're going to be driving hundreds of different pure BEV vehicles. You'll need new trousers as a direct result, I'm sure. But no, we're seeing much more supply coming into the market, and that is being matched by customer demand. I mean, we shouldn't forget that this is because of sort of government subsidies, and there is that price differential that needs to be managed. But the prices are slowly dropping. We're seeing, everybody's now forming clubs, etc., in order to make sure that they hit the CO2 emissions requirements of the EU. Sort of Tesla's making money out of selling their credits, for want of a better term, and as a result is starting to find an alternative route to regular quarterly profitability whilst they sort the cars out. So no, I mean, that ship sailed, that trend has gone. BEV is only going to increase, and diesel is going to continue to steadily decline, I think.
Yeah. And lastly, Mike,
I was going to say just one thing. That's very much from a new car registrations point of view. Clearly, from a used car point of view, there's still a phenomenal number of diesels out there in the park, and people are quite happy to buy them. And so this gets all the news, and I'm sure it will be in the news today when it's all announced as to how the industry is turning the corner and helping us go more eco-friendly. From a practical used car and a profitability point of view, internal combustion engines are still being bought and sold, and very profitably as well.
Yeah, and we on that point we've been reporting on it. It seems like every single month there's a diesel SUV that seems to be the type of car that sells the quickest on dealer forecourts. It's not electrics, it's not plug-in hybrids. They tend to be the slowest in many cases. It's the traditional diesel family SUV that is still the best-selling used car, really. So yeah, good point. That this is specifically new cars. Used cars, it's an entirely different situation. Lastly, though, Mike, profitability results. Are you going to be publishing some results soon?
Yeah, the results will come out this week. Finalised. September profits was very, very strong indeed. Average dealer profitability was over 100 grand a site. The return on sales is slightly down year on year, which is a great result, albeit obviously the sales levels have been down, so it's a slightly masks the drop in overall profitability. But no, it was sort of end of September, and I was expecting the same for October. Really strong profitability for retailers. Clearly, we'll have to manage the lockdown and almost limit the losses, and then hope to make a bit of money in December.
Fantastic. Okay, yeah, we'll be reporting upon that in depth when you publish those. So thank you for that. Just as to repeat the headlines, October new car registrations down 1.6% to just under 141,000 cars. And the best seller for the month was the Mercedes-Benz A-Class. Mike, lovely to have you on as ever. And see you next month, I presume.
Absolutely, look forward to it.
Thanks for coming on. That's it for today. And if you'd like to be involved in a Car Dealer Live, then please do email me, james.batchelor@blackballmedia.co.uk, or James Baggett. He's available at james@blackballmedia.co.uk. But until next time, thanks very much for watching, and goodbye.